The chairperson of the Department of Pathology in the University of Nairobi School of Medicine, Professor Wandia slowly mounted the dais and knelt to receive the highest accolade possible in medical academics, a doctorate in medicine, which was the medical equivalent of a PhD. Her husband, 4 children and 2 foster children, watched in impropriety pride as the chancellor, whose colorful academic gown and headgear bordered on the fantastic, if not the bizarre, placed a wobbly-looking academic hat on her head. By the powers conferred on me by the University of Nairobi, I give you the powers to read and to do all that appertains to this degree. As if I have not read enough to last me 2 lifetimes, she thought irreverently as the applause rose to a crescendo. She was the first Kenyan woman to achieve such a feat in medicine. As she rose to her feet, her little 3-year-old daughter, Kiposa, could not contain herself no longer and piped, "That is Mommy!" "We know you, dummy," answered her brother Mugo. All eyes swiveled towards them and their father squirmed in his seat. Apparently the professor had quite an ordinary-looking family, was the approving verdict of those eyes. In Africa, the greatest accolade is still the possession of children. As the clapping died down, Aoro whispered a word of congratulations to his wife. "You sure earned it, my girl. Only with your help." And it was true. Without his constant encouragement, she would have faltered and maybe even given up. She knew that she was lucky to have him. He was big-hearted and full of self-confidence and begrudged her nothing. He had chosen one way and she had chosen another, and each enjoyed what they did. He, the cutthroat world of private practice, and she, the equally competitive world of academic medicine. They had a good marriage, lovely children, and professional satisfaction. It was a good life. "You look very far away," he remarked, looking into her eyes. "Yeah," she answered. "I was counting my blessings." "Am I one of them?" he asked jokingly. He loved to joke. "Of course, the best of them," she answered quite seriously and meant it. Eventually, the long ceremony ended and the sea of graduates in their black robes broke up. The Sigus rose and fought their way to their car. Back at home, the whole extended family awaited them. The Mugos were there with their various spouses and their children, as were the Sigus. There were also friends from either side. Wandia's mother, who eventually had to have an amputation and was a bit blind, was nevertheless there for her daughter's big day. Vera had come up with her college friend Marianne, her husband Matthew, and their 5 active children. As was expected, Marianne and Matthew were supernumeraries, that is, married members of the Opus Dei. Marianne was in charge of the catering, which released Wandia fully to enjoy herself. By nature, she was a Martha, a warrior, but with Marianne ably in charge, she could afford to be Mary, relaxing with the guests. As was to be expected, Alicia, now an undergrad student of design and music at the Kenyatta University, was Vera's constant and bright-eyed shadow. Johnny, with Daniel in tow, hovered between Aoro and Wandia. It was a foregone conclusion that he was going to the medical school. Wandia had once tentatively asked him whether he might not want to fly. After all, some of these things ran very deeply in the blood. Understanding the real implication of these words, Johnny had flashed, looking squarely at her, and answered, "You know, I never knew him. If he were to walk in through that door this minute, I wouldn't even know what to say to him. That is, if I would forgive him. You and Uncle are all the father and mother I have had and will ever need." Wandia answered, "You are almost a man now, Johnny. You must realize how deeply your mother must have hurt him. You must learn to forgive, for we all need forgiveness sooner or later. But when you are young, with your unblemished youth ahead of you, everything is either black or white." And Johnny's answers had been, "I can't see myself abandoning my children just because I disagree with my wife. They will just be innocent victims. You may not realize it, but before I came to live with you, I felt completely unlovable and unwanted. I thought it was because I was neither black nor white, but some horrible mixture. And now, Auntie, since we are talking heart to heart, I would like to tell you that I want to change my name from Courtney to Sigo. Johnny, you are the most lovable person I know. I couldn't love you more if you are my own son. But never blame the color of your skin for anything. That is just a crutch that some people use to cover up their weaknesses and shortcomings. Stand up and be counted like a man. That is all that matters. Secondly, never shut a door unnecessarily. And changing your name will do just that. You're a child of two worlds, and I believe that somewhere within you, somehow, someday, you will find that you have the best of both of these worlds. Besides, your father may come in search of you even after 40 years, if he's still alive somewhere. Keep the door open, Johnny. Her eyes pleaded for the man she had never known, but his son just looked at her darkly and went to his room. For young Johnny, now in late adolescence, was at a crossroads. Most especially he felt keenly his total lack of an African name. His father in truth will not have minded, but Beiki had not thought it necessary and had given neither of her children an African appendage. Eventually, at 18, he would compromise and would take the name Sigo as a middle name. This, he felt, would appease his African soul. Also, Johnny was excessively fair with straight, very light brown hair. People tended to take him for a pure white, a thing he disliked and which he countered by speaking mostly Swahili, eating mainly African food and having friends who were practically soot black. Wandia, who was very observant, noted all this with great concern and asked Vera to write to John Courtney again and to send him a photograph of his two children. Which father could resist or want to lose so fine a pair? And though Wandia did not know it, Johnny was the spitting image of his father. The party swung on late into the night as the children dropped off one by one, were moved to the bedrooms and carefully placed on mattresses spread on the floor to take as many as possible. The old folks then followed and only the young people remained. Not so young anymore, for many were in their late 30s and mid-40s, the prime of life, and they wanted to dance and discuss the night away. A rare opportunity, for they were all hard-working, self-driven people who rarely ever took a day off. Politics was particularly hot as the country was facing unprecedented economic decline, with inflation spiraling completely out of control. The recently concluded multi-party elections, which many had hoped would usher in a new era, had been characterized by confusion and cries of foul play by the opposition and declarations of total transparency by the winners, who, if they were to be believed, had turned from goat to guardians of the vegetable patch. Once again, the people's dogged perseverance in the face of lies and bureaucratically engineered setbacks was something to behold. Kenyans, the common people, had come out shining. The donors, not particularly impressed by the Capricorn-turned-guardian angel transformation of the rulers, were still withholding aid, and the country was going to the dogs, slowly but surely. These were the words in the mouths of all able-bodied Kenyans these days, and there was a fair representation of them in that room, from bankers to teachers to doctors to lawyers, engineers to architects, and each and every one of them had an opinion to be voiced, preferably at the top of his or her lungs, with the assistance, of course, of some frothy brew or stinging distillate. Elizabeth came out of the bedroom unobserved and stood looking at the noisy gathering. These were her children and their friends, and behind her, fast asleep, her children's children, a wonderful sight indeed. She turned and pattered away quietly, but on an impulse decided to check on the little ones. She found them sprawled all over the place, as only the very young can be. One rascal, Opio's son Mark, actually had his leg placed squarely on another child's neck. Elizabeth bent over to remove it and felt the attack of a dizzy breathlessness come upon her once again. And with the sure knowledge of one who has lived long, she knew that this ominous suffocation was a sign of the beginning of the end. She rested a little, holding on to the door, and then quietly went to join Mark in bed. She stayed awake late into the night, and as was wont to happen to her so much of late, Memories of 70 years' duration flashed effortlessly through her mind. There she was, a very little girl, clothed in nothing but the love of Were, the god of the eye of the rising sun. Then she was sitting in the shadow of Grandfather Olo's largest bull, missing her mother who had gone away to seek the new way. Again, there she was with her cousin Owor, walking in single file between Maria in front and grandmother Akoko in the back. They were on their way to the mission at Aluor, a haven for heartbroken widows and bereft orphans who wanted to learn the ways of Yesu Christo. And here she was, studying in her cubicle at the teacher's training college. A love letter comes flying in through the open window. It was from a fellow student whose name was Cosmas somebody or other, and like so many others, it declared his willingness to climb mountains, ford rivers, and swim oceans in order to reach her and win her love. The guy must have drowned by now, thought Elizabeth, her lips twitching. And of course, there was a lifetime of memories with Mark Antony. In her opinion, still the best-looking man around. She also remembered clearly the day Akoko had died and her conviction that it was all over. How mistaken she had been, for in truth, it had only just begun, and now she saw evidence of that great woman in so many of her grandchildren, but strangely enough, most clearly in her daughter-in-law Wandia, the girl from the rich country of the Kikuyu, who was no blood relative but who clearly, if instinctively, understood the true destiny of a woman to live life to the full and to fight to the end. In the small hours of the night, Elizabeth eventually slid into a fitful and disturbed sleep. Mark, being a very heavy sleeper, stirred stiffly but did not wake up. The following morning, everyone packed up and scattered to whatever direction they had come from, exhausted but happy. Aoro and Wandia were dozing on the sofa when the phone started ringing insistently. It was Opio who had driven off with his parents and children earlier in the day. His voice shook a little as he gave his task message. Elizabeth had fallen sick on the outskirts of Nakuru. Apparently, she had problems with breathing. They had rushed her to the hospital, but to their horror and disbelief, she had been declared dead on arrival. "Will they please come immediately?" He hung up on his brothers. What do you mean?" Still ringing in his ears. They buried Elizabeth beneath her favorite grove of wildly branching Elgon ticks, garlanded with vividly spray of purple bougainvillea. A large crowd had come to say goodbye to Mwalimu, the teacher. Her children and her children's children and their spouses and friends stood still. There were children she had taught at school so many years ago, now adults but still remembering the affection, the gentle firmness with which she had guided them in their most formative years. There were fellow teachers and Mark's former workmates, now grizzled old men and women, the few who were still on their feet. Mark himself sat next to the coffin, rigid and mute, trying to grapple with the enormity of his loss and the magnitude of his loneliness. He himself would follow his wife within the year. She, after all, had been his life. His Lordship Peter Oworkembo, Bishop of the Diocese of Kisumu, now a stiff and grey old man, but still having the sparkle of youth in his eyes, conducted the funeral mass with the assistance of Father Anthony Sigo, popularly known as Father Tony, who looked solemn and sad. He had been devoted to his mother. The mass was beautiful and poignant, and in the middle, Wandia, of all people, fainted, dead away, but on being roused, refused to be helped away. She wept brokenly for her mother-in-law. No, rather for her friend Elizabeth. She would stay to the bitter end. As the red earth rose to form a mound over the coffin, people began to wander away, but her children hung on, forlorn and lost. But the dead have no use for the living, who eventually have to tear themselves away to continue with the business of life. Even they finally had to wander away numb, but waiting for the healing touch of good memories, of love and laughter, which will eventually return to touch them with the breath of life once again. Nearby was Becky's grave, covered with flowers, as beautiful as she herself had been in this life.